In order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senators Baisley, Bridges. Senator Bridges.
Excused.
Buckner. Senator Buckner. Cutter. Senator Cutter.
Excused.
Danielson. Exum. Fenberg.
Excused.
Fields. Gardner. Senator Gardner. Senator Gardner.
Senator Gardner.
Janal. Gonzalez. Senator Gonzalez. Hanson. Hinrichsen. Hawkins Lewis. Senator Hawkins Lewis.
Excused.
Kirkmeyer. Kolker. Liston. Lundin. Senator Lundin.
Excused.
Marchman. Senator Marchman.
Excused.
Michelson Janae. Malika. Senator Malika.
Mullica. Senator Mullica.
Senator Malika. Thank you. Pelton B. Pelton R. Priola. Senator Priola.
Excused.
Rich. Roberts. Rodriguez. Simpson. Smallwood. Sullivan. Van Winkle. Senator Van Winkle. Well. Winter. Zenzinger. Mr. President.
No.
Oh.
Go back, words, and start with people that you have.
Bridges. Senator Bridges. Cotter.
She's stuck in traffic, so skip. Oh, was that her? Keep going. She's still excused.
Senator Hawkins Lewis. Was that her? Senator Hawkins Lewis.
Nope, keep going.
Senator Lundin. Marchman. Priola.
Hold on. Baisley and Hanson were here,
Yes.
okay? And then call. Yes, we got you.
Mr. President.
Let's do this. The morning roll call is 32 present, 0 absent, 3 excused. We have a quorum. Senator Michelson Janae, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the journal. Senator Will.
Thank you, Mr. President. And yesterday it was a unanimous yes. So I move that the Senate Journal of January 22nd, 2024 be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. No. The ayes have it, and that motion is adopted. Senate Services. Senate Services.
January 23, 2024, correctly printed Senate Bill 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82. Senate Joint Resolution 5, correctly enrolled Senate Joint Resolution 3.
Committee reports.
January 22nd, 2024, Committee on Judiciary. After considering on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 29 be amended as follows, and if so amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation.
Is it all three? All three. All three. No. Just read the committee they're assigned to. And then if it's the same committee, just keep reading. You don't have to read the committee again.
After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 27 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 30 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation.
General orders, second reading of the bill. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we convene into the general order second reading of bills into the Committee of the Whole.
You heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself to the Committee of the Whole. Further consideration of general order, second reading of bills, and Senator Gonzalez will take the chair.
The title of the bill?
Little quick summary. Earned income tax credit.
The committee will come to order, and the coat rule is relaxed for everyone in the chamber. Welcome, everybody, to our first cow of the year. Mr. Hubler, will you please read the title to House Bill 1084?
By Representatives Wilford and Young and Senators Colker and Fields concerning the repeal and reenactment of the law enacted by House Bill 23B-1002 that increased the earned income tax credit for 2023 and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Colker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 241084 on second reading.
To the bill.
Members, House Bill 1084 is basically repealing and reenacting what we did in special session to expand the earned income tax credit for 2023, and I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, colleagues, House Bill 1084 is a repeal and reenactment. And when I saw that, I've learned to look out for that. And I wondered why that might have been. And I looked at the original bill. The bill is introduced, and it's been changed on the re-engrossment. But the bill as introduced was really more illuminating than that. And I encourage you, I'm not going to read it word for word, but I encourage you to take a look at the legislative declaration on page 2 of the introduced bill. It seems that over in the House during the special session, a member there may have asked for a second reading at length of a bill on the earned income tax credit, and that second reading was not granted, which resulted in litigation. Now, I don't know whether that litigation was going to be successful, unsuccessful, whether it was well-advised or ill-advised, but it does seem that there was a very arguable case that the House rules were not complied with, nor was the Colorado Constitution, which leads us to being here this morning on our second reading to repeal and reenact a bill which was in danger of becoming null and void. Now, I was troubled by the fact that between the introduced bill, and the introduced bill said, on page 3, it said, notwithstanding the fact that the procedures followed by the House of Representatives complied with House rules and state law in all respects, that got removed, and that was good because I have to say, if state law was complied with in all respects over in the House, we wouldn't need to be taking our time to repeal and reenact. I could be speaking with our guests here who are here to emphasize suicide prevention, something that we could do instead of repeating work that could have been done right the first time if the other chamber had followed the Constitution. But here we are. Now, the new legislative declaration in the re-engross bill says on page 2, section 1B, it is in the public interest that House Bill 23B-1002, this is the bill that was placed in question by the failure to read this as requested under the Constitution on a second reading. For, ironically, why do we have that requirement in the Constitution? Well, in the case of Cook versus Markwell, this Colorado Supreme Court said that that was just as the Colorado Constitution and its intention was, to avoid hasty passage of legislation. So we are accomplishing what was required, and that is we're going to take the time this morning to discuss this legislation and the merits of it, something that did not very well happen in the extraordinary session. At paragraph B1, it says litigation was filed over House Bill 23B-1002's compliance with Section 22 of Article 5 of the state constitution, providing for the reading of bills at length unless there is unanimous consent to waive readings by the members present. The filing of that litigation has produced great financial uncertainty for state taxpayers. Indeed, it has. Whatever the merits of the extension of the Earned Incomes Tax Credit, it should not be left in limbo across the street at the Colorado Supreme Court ultimately. There are things, however, in the current legislative declaration that gave me pause. On page 2, lines 15 and 16, it says, litigation was filed over House Bill 23B-1002's compliance with section. Well, I don't think there was litigation filed over compliance. I think the complaint was the litigation filed, and it didn't say, oh, there's some question of compliance. What it really said in that complaint was that the House of Representatives, through, with respect, the Speaker, disregarded the Constitution of the the Constitution of the state of Colorado. And so, in order to clarify what the reason is for this, I thought it appropriate to bring an amendment, which might find its way to the desk.
You're good. There is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Hubler, will you please read L004 to 1084?
House Bill 1084.
Senator Gardner.
.004.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, what Amendment L004 says, what it will do is take lines 15 and 16, instead of saying litigation was filed over House Bill 23B 1002's compliance with Section 22, it will change that to litigation was filed over House Bill 23B 1002's disregard for Section 22. This is really what the litigation was filed over, whether that was going to be ultimately decided in favor of the plaintiff or the defendant, House Speaker and Chamber, remains to be seen, but I assume will be mooted by this. But I ask for an aye vote. Things ought to be called what they are in legislative declarations, and we ought not rewrite history. I do commend the House for having rewritten the original declaration. The original declaration had said, oh, we did everything right, but we're going to do this whole exercise and take everybody's time, even though we did everything right. This at least recognizes that things may well have been done wrong. I ask for an aye vote on if I haven't moved it, I move L004 and ask for an aye vote on L004.
Thank you, Senator Gardner. Senator Fields.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. We ask for a no vote on this amendment L004. It's just not appropriate. Basically, what the bill is an opportunity for us to put money back in the hands of working families. And this amendment that's being offered kind of distracts from the overall purpose and objective of what we're trying to do with this bill. And that is to help working families put some money in their bag. So this argument, as it relates to striking lines 15 through 16, really doesn't advance the bill any further. So we're asking for a no vote on this amendment.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, with respect for my colleague from Aurora, let me say the reason we're even here is because instead of following the process of the Colorado Constitution to get to the point of putting money in the hands of working families in Colorado and having the debate over it in a full and fair way during the extraordinary session, we're having to repeal that and repass this. And I would have been okay with no legislative declaration. But the legislative declaration is there, and it's part of the bill. And if it hadn't been there, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't be standing here. Maybe I wouldn't be speaking about it, but it's part of the bill. And it raises the question, because of the statements in it, about why is the bill being offered at all? Now, there's an easy way to get to the nub of all of this, to get to what the merits of the bill are, and that is to simply come up here and say, the senator from Colorado Springs has a point, we ask for an aye vote, and then we'll move on to the substance of the bill. So I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of L004 to House Bill 1084. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The noes have it. That amendment is lost. Seeing no further discussion on the bill, welcome, Senator Baisley. If you'd like to be recognized, don't forget to raise your hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the reorientation. You know, it's been a few months, so thank you for that. For my constituents, this bill at its heart, intends to increase the earned income tax credit from 25% of the amount of federal earned income tax credit to 50%. Okay, arguable on its face that is something that ought to be considered by this body. In the original from the extraordinary session that we had a couple of months ago, back in November, early December, this bill was brought up as the good senator from Colorado Springs was describing earlier. Now, in that, what's missing from the description on this version, which is exactly the same as the old version, but in the old version, House Bill 23B-1002 includes these words. It says the Tabor refund mechanism allows for an increase in the earned income tax credit that a resident individual, including a resident individual who does not have a Social Security number valid for employment, may claim on the resident individual state income tax return from 25% to 50% of the federal credit claimed. So there are some reasons why a legal, valid resident in the United States, in the state of Colorado, would not have a valid Social Security number for employment. But those are extraordinary circumstances. For instance, someone whose Social Security number has been compromised and they are in the process of receiving a new Social Security number. But we know where this is actually headed. It's an intent to move money from our pockets, from your pockets, constituents, to folks who even do not have a valid Social Security number. You would think that that would be an extremely small number of people resident in Colorado, but I'm afraid that it is not. And where will that money come from? Right out of the pool of money that would equal your taxpayer Bill of Rights refund. So it is quite a leap to go from, we're going to increase from 25% to 75%. We're going to avail that money to folks who are here without a valid Social Security number, and we're going to take it from your taxpayer Bill of Rights refund. That's quite a stack, and something I don't think is good for anyone here, supposed to be here in the state of Colorado. So I think we need to consider reaching out to the cause of having residents here in Colorado who do not have Social Security numbers valid and who would be taking advantage of people's taxpayers' Bill of Rights refunds. And let's consider amending this re-engrossed House Bill 24-1084. Madam Chair, I have an amendment that I'd like to introduce.
There is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Hubler, will you please read L005 to 1084?
House Bill 1084, L.005, amend re-engrossed bill, page 2, line 11, strike and, page 3, line 7, strike year, and substitute year and. Furthermore, the state of Colorado demands that the White House and Congress take immediate actions to secure our borders through any and all legal means necessary.
Senator Baisley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I appreciate the coaching. Is that working?
I'm
Thank you.
following your lead. Please proceed.
You're awesome. Thank you. So, members, what this does at its heart, this adds a call to the White House in Washington, D.C. from this body, from the legislative body, saying the state of Colorado demands that the White House and Congress take immediate action to secure our borders through any and all legal means necessary, and necessary to preserve the people's right to their Tabor refunds, their taxpayer Bill of Rights refunds that would not then get extended to folks resident here who do not even have a valid Social Security number. Let's secure our borders as the nation is crying out for, and let's rise up as the state of Colorado and demand that Washington do their job, secure our borders. So I ask for an aye vote on L005.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning. Members, I'm requiring,
There has been a, Senator Fields, do you,
yes, a senatorial 5, please.
there has been a request for a senatorial 5. Senator Kolker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I request a title ruling to this amendment. I don't believe this fits under the title.
There's a title ruling being requested. We will confer. And we will stand in a senatorial 5. I appreciate the conversation that we had in regards to L005. The chair rules that amendment falls outside of the title. Further discussion, Senator Baisley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I respect your decision that the title does not encompass the call to Washington to do their job and secure our borders. the point still remains, and I would just like to end on that point, that this bill does reach back all the way to the original bill from the special session. In fact, the wording is exactly the same in the bill itself, so the effect would have the exact same effect of including those without Social Security numbers, pulling money from the taxpayers' Bill of Rights refunds, and therefore, we need to slow that down. It's not our authority to do. That's the authority of Congress, authority of the White House. And so, regardless of whether this amendment fits, I will still, as a state senator, call on Congress to do so, do their job. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Baisley. Further discussion to the bill. Senator Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And a bit on the point that was raised earlier, which is the eligibility for the Earned Income Tax Credit. I do have an amendment here, and I will present it to the desk.
There is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Hubler, will you please read L006 to 1084?
House Bill 1084.
Senator Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L006 to House Bill 1084.
Boom, to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And what this amendment does is it says, it goes exactly to the point that was being discussed earlier, which is what is the eligibility requirements for receiving the Earned Income Tax Credit? Because the IRS is very clear on those eligibility requirements. And what this bill does is it extends those credit eligibility to any resident individual that does not have a Social Security number that is valid for employment. Now, this is a vast departure from current federal law. The IRS is very clear on the requirement that for resident aliens, the filer still needs a valid Social Security number, as the requirements for resident aliens are as follows. They or their spouse must be a U.S. citizen with a valid Social Security number, or a resident alien who has been in the U.S. for at least 6 months of the year, and they would have a valid Social Security number if that were the case. So what this bill does is it limits the eligibility requirements to those people who are, of course, U.S. citizens and resident aliens who have been here for at least 6 months. I ask for a yes vote so that our taxpayer Bill of Rights may be further protected, and that money may be further given to the hardworking taxpayers of Colorado.
Is there further discussion? Leader Lundin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I rise in support of this amendment. I will be speaking to the bill shortly, and the arguments I will be making are around the concept that the Taxpayer Bill of Rights is designed to extract revenues, taxes, from many people who pay in across Colorado, and the desire of the original intention associated with the Taxpayer Bill of Rights was to refund when there are excess revenues to as many people as possible that are associated with that taxation. The reality is this amendment simply says very clearly that individuals who have just recently showed up in the state are beginning to develop a purchase and an engagement in the state, but not yet having gone through the process of receiving a Social Security card, which is the mechanism through which we all connect ourselves in our paperwork pathway to the taxes we pay and the benefits that we may receive or not receive over the course of time. People that haven't had that level of purchase into our society and into the state, in fact, should not have the ability to participate in this. Therefore, making more money available to the folks who are in the state, have been in the state for a longer period of time, more connected to the societal fabric of our state, and therefore deserving of funds. We should make sure that as much money is available as possible for those individuals. So I rise in support of this. It has a narrowing, but I think an appropriate narrowing of those who would be eligible to receive the benefit. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Minority Leader. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the language of this amendment because at least it's to the actual underlying bill itself, whereas the previous amendment was not. It was about a different matter altogether. Now, if we want to have a conversation about who is and who isn't eligible, let's have that conversation. Because at the end of the day, to whom would an individual apply for an individual taxpayer identification number from? Let's think about that. It'd be to the Internal Revenue Service. In order to file taxes, to receive an earned income tax credit, you'd need to have a number. Whether that is a Social Security number or an individual taxpayer identification number, you gotta apply to the Internal Revenue Service. For folks who are asking us to follow the law, for folks who are asking us to abide by the law and the Constitution, the people who would be eligible, whether that is due to having an individual taxpayer identification number or a Social Security number, have done exactly that. They have followed the mechanisms that are put forward by the federal government to pay their taxes. And so, why limit the people who are actually going forward and doing what the government is asking them to do from being able to receive this earned income tax credit? I ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too rise in opposition of this amendment, but more importantly, I rise in support of the bill, and let me tell you why. This bill will help.
We're on the amendment right now, Senator Priola.
Okay. I rise in opposition of this amendment.
Seeing no further discussion on Amendment L0, Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to be as clear about the choice we're making here as I can, and then while I urge a yes vote, you may choose to do otherwise, but I don't want there to be any misunderstanding. The Earned Income Tax Credit at the federal level, as with this tax credit at the state level, is a benefit conferred. It's a tax credit, not a deduction from your taxes. It's not you calculate your taxes and then you deduct from your income certain things, business expenses and moving expenses and various things that the IRS has permitted. It operates as a credit, as a give back to you, but the Earned Income Tax Credit is more than a give back. You can get more back than you paid in. Now, the federal government, the United States Congress, and the President, having signed it into law, made a policy decision that if we're going to confer a benefit, that it ought to go to a certain category of people, and it ought not go to people who are, could very well be here legally. Those on a student visa are here legally, and they can work, but they don't have a Social Security number. My understanding of this is that the only people who get Social Security numbers are citizens and resident aliens. Those with what's commonly referred to as a green card get Social Security numbers. Others get an individual tax identification number. Or even this bill, I think, goes so far as to say you can have the credit if you don't have an ITIN. I don't know how they process your return, Because after all, you're a number, not a name, to the folks at the Department of Revenue, and you're a number of how much they can collect or how much you have to pay them. But this is a policy choice, folks. Are we going to give Tabor refund money to the category of people who are citizens and resident aliens? Or are we going to give it to college students who are here and give them more than they paid in? A stipend, if you will, a further stipend. You may say that's great policy. I have a feeling that the citizens of the 12th Senate District in El Paso County, and a piece of Teller County too, all 50 people there, would say, I don't think my Tabor refund money ought to be going to that category of people. My Tabor refund money really ought to be coming to me. That's for another debate with respect to this bill. But that's the way this bill is funded. So that's the choice you're making. I urge a yes vote so that we will conform to the federal earned income tax credit, because that seems the appropriate policy choice, and I ask for an aye vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of L006. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The noes have it. That amendment is lost. Further discussion. Leader Lundin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So to the bill itself, it's got a couple big concepts. It intersects with the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, a big constitutional amendment worthy of, I think, a meaningful conversation. The big concept side of this conversation, earned income tax credits, to those of us who are conservative and actually care to read economics, are pretty good policies. When you think of it this way, you give an individual who you want to have a leg up, an opportunity to advance forward in society, some support in doing that, and you as a society say, we're going to choose to give them something more than what they have paid in, because we believe they should have an opportunity to move forward. One way to do that is to offer an earned income tax credit to those individuals so they may do the things that take care of their needs, their families' needs, as they perceive them to exist. Another way to do that, and quite frankly, tragically, since Lyndon Baines Johnson and the Great Society, and tens and hundreds of billions of dollars, probably trillions of dollars, we have chosen a different pathway. Let's create a government program. Now, the challenge with the government program, and you all know this, everybody in this room has run a bill that runs through the government, and you always have some expense associated with that. You typically, in your bill, say the government may keep no more than 10% or 15%, or in extreme cases, extremely efficient cases, I would argue, 5% of the money being spent in this program may be kept for administrative purposes by the government. Well, the reality is you have more friction when you create that government program and you pay the government to stand up the program and advance the program, and it inevitably doesn't work efficiently. And we all have experienced when a government program isn't working, what's the first thing that the agency or the Department of Government asks for? More money. We're not able to do our job, so give us more money, and we promise with more money we'll be able to do a better job. Well, the earned income tax credit kind of short circuits all of that bad hardwiring, and it says to the individual, look, we believe in you, we want you to participate in society, we want to give you some help. And so we instead offer an earned income tax credit. So the question becomes, Lundeen, why are you arguing against an earned income tax credit bill if you believe in earned income tax credits? Well, because this particular bill is going to diminish the money that's actually made available to the very people we say we're trying to help. The analysis coming back from our Legislative Council research staff is for Tabor Taxpayer Bill of Rights refunds without this expanded EITC, a taxpayer with an AGI, an adjusted gross income, that's the line on your tax return that tells you, what kind of taxes you're going to pay, what category you're going to fall into, of $75,000 would receive $847 for single filers and $1,694 for joint filers. And listen to this next part. This is the critical part. For Tabor Taxpayer Bill of Rights refunds with this expanded program, this very bill we're voting on right now, EITC, a taxpayer with that same adjusted gross income of $75,000 would receive $800, $47 less as a single filer, and $1,600, $94 less for joint filers. And here's the money slide, here's the money shot, here's the money answer, and would not be eligible for EITC, the Earned Income Tax Credit. They lose their eligibility as the income limits in this bill range from $17,640 for a single payer with no children to $63,678 for married taxpayers with 3 or more children. So that's a material challenge. We're in fact disrupting and potentially taking money out of the hands of the very people we say we're trying to help. Problem number 1 with the bill. Problem number 2 with the bill has to do with the way it does violence to the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. So let's talk back through. And the Taxpayer Bill of Rights is really an interesting, unique, amazing thing that Colorado has exceptional among the many, many states. I remember being in a conversation once about American exceptionalism, what makes America exceptional. What makes America exceptional is it's this experiment where we put people above government. We said the people will be sovereign. It used to be the king was sovereign, the people were plebes or serfs or whatever. They just did whatever the king said. Not in America. We put the people above the government, and that's what makes America exceptional. And I said in the course of that conversation, Colorado's exceptional too. And of course, the person I was having the conversation says, oh, come on, Lundeen, prove that up. How is Colorado exceptional? And I'll bet there's 34 additional answers from my 34 colleagues of why they think Colorado's exceptional. But I'll tell you one reason why Colorado's exceptional. They have the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, which limits government in a meaningful way. And when you limit government in a meaningful way, you advance people in a meaningful way. It gives the people greater authority. So 1992, we passed the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Now, in the course of that conversation, we weren't very prescriptive, although we described exactly why we wanted the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. We put it, the arguments made in the Blue Book. This was a citizen initiative that was passed in 1992. Put in the Blue Book, of course, is always the language that gives you the arguments for or the arguments against something that's being considered on the ballot. Well, ultimately, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights passed, and the arguments for were the amendment would slow the growth of government and prevent taxes from rising faster than the taxpayer's ability to pay. The amendment opposes the discipline and accountability that is needed to require government to consider the ability of taxpayers to support new expanded programs before it raises taxes. The government has demonstrated, the arguments in the Blue Book go on, the government has not demonstrated that it can effectively and efficiently spend the tax revenue it receives. The answer is to control how much money the government receives. Going on, and I'm quite frankly giving you the Reader's Digest here. I'm abridging this fairly dramatically. I'm sharing less than 10% of the arguments. Government should live within its means, and the proposal's debt provisions provide that necessary discipline. So Lundin, we get it. Taxpayer Bill of Rights is important. But I'm getting to the point where we start talking about the intention that was created by the people of Colorado when they put the Taxpayer Bill of Rights into the Constitution, the intention of how they wanted the refunds to be issued. What happens if we have too much, if the government has too much money? And we do now. You've heard it in the State of the State address. It was one of those applause moments. I was actually on my feet applauding when the governor said, we have too much money in reserve, the state of Colorado, we do. And we need to lower our tax rates, the state of Colorado, we do. Boy, Governor Polis could not agree with you more. We need to do that. And that brings us back to this conversation around the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Well, part of the intention of how you're supposed to refund was apparent in the initial arguments around putting the Taxpayer Bill of Rights into the Constitution. Controlling the growth of government and limiting the tax burden are the surest means to provide for the state's economic climate. Business is reluctant to invest when tax rates increase regularly. By allowing people to keep more of what they earn, productivity and investment will be rewarded. And we get on into the arguments that begin to hint at, they don't speak directly to, how the refunds should be paid out. The proposal improves the ability of local governments and citizens to control their own affairs, requires greater fiscal responsibility at each level of government. In complying with refund requirements, the cost, it says, of complying with refund requirements is not excessive since government is not necessarily required to refund monies directly to individual taxpayers. It may use temporary rate reductions to accomplish the same end. So in the arguments for the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, you get a hint of how we're supposed to take this excess money. Now, this bill wants to take $182 million and give it to people in a very specific way. I made the argument that an earned income tax credit is better than creating yet one more government program. But the next argument I am now making is this particular amendment does violence to the intention of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. The Taxpayer Bill of Rights says, give it back to everybody, not a narrow class, not a narrow group, not a replacement of a government policy you might like and I as a conservative would like, but I don't think you should fund it with the Taxpayer Bill of Rights refund money, and here's why. The money, according to the language that put it into the Constitution, says give it back broadly. That was 1992. So we're bumping along. In 1997, we run up against the time when we had excess revenues, very much like we do today. And so in 1997, under a Democrat governor, a special session was convened to determine exactly how the money should be refunded. So you've got 1992, the intention of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights mechanism put into the Constitution. It says just reduce rates. That's the best way to give it back. Reduce the tax rates so those who are paying the taxes pay less. 1997, well, how are we going to address this issue and what are we going to do? So Roy Romer calls a special session. We get together, and I could read you the call. You folks are all familiar. Some of the folks are guests today and in the gallery and on the floor, maybe not quite so familiar. But it basically calls in and says, this is concerning the refund of state revenues. I love that word, refund. State revenues exclusively received in or accrued to in fiscal year 96-97. So they're very specific. It's about the tax year and the refund mechanism. All right, so what happened then in 97 in that special session? Critically important, 5 years after the presentation and enshrinement of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights in the Constitution, we're now distributing money back to the people. And how do we do it? Well, from that 97 special session, the law as passed says it is the considered judgment of the General Assembly that there's excess revenues is point one. It's not feasible, they said, to make proportional repayments to individuals as individuals, but we need to do it in a way that's consistent with the intention of Tabor. And so the law says then, it is reasonable and fair to refund state excess revenues for the 96-97 fiscal year to a large group of individuals. Again, from many to many is the goal here, as a refund of state sales tax revenues. Boy, if you want to give broad relief, if you want to be consistent with the idea of taking from many and giving to many, sales tax refund is a great way to get at it. And in 1997, that was the first step down the path of honoring the Taxpayer Bill of Rights refund mechanism that we took as a General Assembly. We said, let's keep it broad. It came from many people. It should go back to many people. It was collected as income taxes. It was collected as specific ownership taxes. It was collected as sales taxes. We shall give it back to as many people as possible by keeping the refund mechanism extremely broad. So in 1997, the choice was make it a sales tax refund. So we bump on down the path year after year, and what happens is those who love to grow government realized, wow, this Taxpayer Bill of Rights refund thing, this thing that makes Colorado exceptional among the states, is a threat to my ability to grow government. So let's start figuring out ways around that. Let's start putting policies that we believe in inside the Taxpayer Bill of Rights refund mechanism. And we'll fund our growth in government in exactly the opposite means and for exactly the opposite reason the Taxpayer Bill of Rights was put into the Constitution in the first place. It was put in the Constitution to restrain the growth of government. And now it has been under leadership that is of a different political stripe than mine and a different economic philosophy than mine. The Taxpayer Bill of Rights refund pool has been used to grow government. And here we have it one more time. If you believe $182 million should go into an earned income tax credit to the people of Colorado, then let's have that policy discussion. And let's take it out of the $1.4 billion in excess reserves we have for the general fund. 1.4 billion, 182, it's a fraction of it. It's a little more than 10%, we'll say, of the existing revenue. If we believe that an earned income tax credit is the right economic policy, is the right state policy, is the right thing to do for the people of Colorado, I'll have that conversation with you. And you might find me in a surprising position in support of earned income tax credits. But funding it with the Taxpayer Bill of Rights refund money is absolutely unacceptable. The Taxpayer Bill of Rights was put in the Constitution to protect the people from overweening, excessive, expansive government. And now we're using the money that's supposed to be reserved for refund to the people to expand government policies that we believe in. Let's have that policy conversation, but let's not do it on the backs of the people's savings account, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights refund account. That money should be broadly distributed, not narrowly distributed for the purpose of promoting a policy that you might agree with. So you may hear this argument from me on many or other policy issues where my colleagues are continuing to intrude into, do violence is the word I used, against the Taxpayer Bill of Rights as we walk through this session, because tragically, that pool of money that is the people's savings account, which should be refunded broadly to the people of Colorado, is being used increasingly as a mechanism for funding the excessive growth of government as it is in this particular bill. So you heard legal arguments about the repeal and replace. I mean, this whole thing is chasing the fact that there is an argument that the Constitution requires that every bill be read at length on its second and third reading, absent the unanimous consent of the body that it should move forward otherwise. In fact, there was someone in the other chamber who really felt the bill that's being repealed and replaced should have been read at length in the special. That did not happen. So now, in an effort to avoid a legal problem, a legal challenge, this repeal and replace is chasing through to flush that lawsuit on out of the system. The argument has been made regarding that. My argument isn't directly to the legal, it's really to the policy construct and the fact that I think we need to be honest with the people of Colorado and say that this bill does violence to your original intention for the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. In '92, the language that you voted for to put the Taxpayer Bill of Rights into the Constitution implied that should there be refunds, they should be broad. In 1997, when we actually took a little more clarifying action around that as the General Assembly, the answer was to make it a sales tax refund. Here in this bill, we have it as a narrow expenditure that is a policy that you may or may not support, but it is being funded inappropriately with the taxpayer's savings account, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights refund money. Madam Chair, I appreciate your attention to my your conversation, and colleagues, I urge you, when you're headed toward a cliff, it's a bad cliff, you're going to go off the cliff, the only thing you can do is press the brake pedal, come to a stop, turn around, go the other direction. And that's what I urge us to do. Let's not pass this bill. I urge your opposition to Senate or House Bill 1084, I believe is the number on this one, 1084. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Leader Lundin, I think that Leader Holbert would very much appreciate your recitation and history lesson that you have offered us today. Senator Kolker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and appreciate the back and forth going on for this bill. A bill that, if we focus on, what the purpose is to help working families who do pay income taxes, who are having an affordability issue, who can use this earned income tax credit along with the credit that they're receiving from the Tabor surplus. I have confirmation that, unlike what the minority leader said, the Tabor surplus credit will not go against their income this year, so it will not push them out of the EITC. I do have that confirmation from the Department of Revenue, from a spokesman from Senator Michael Bennett's office and Governor Jared Polis, and the Internal Revenue Service leadership actually confirmed on January 9th, 2024. That being said, I urge my colleagues to again repass this legislation, stop delaying the needs of those who are working hard at the lowest incomes, and let's get this out and get it to the people as they need it. Thank you.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank my colleagues for all the debate and discussion on this bill, House Bill 1084. And I just want to bring it back home, what this bill is all about. This bill is about the Earned Income Tax Credit, which is a refundable tax credit for working families. It helps them afford rent, food, transportation, and other basic needs. I represent a district, and I think you might have this in some of your fact sheets, but in my Senate district, 15,530 people have been able to claim their income tax credit. And in committee, we heard from a father who talked about how he had to stretch his paycheck to make ends meet. Not everyone's privileged that way, where they don't have to worry about stretching their paycheck. But what this income tax credit does, it gives these families, these children, flexibility by that family having that extra income, maybe to buy a soccer uniform, maybe to get some new tires, maybe just to fill up their gas tank. It's an opportunity for us to lift people up from poverty who are living from paycheck to paycheck. It's already in statute. It's already there. Basically what this bill will do, and we already passed it in the special session, it increases that earned income tax credit to give them a little more bump, to put money in the hands of working people. The people I see coming from Aurora down Colfax, they are on the 15. They're catching the early bus, trying to get to work. This is about the working family. So don't get distracted about, this is about protecting the borders. This is about protecting families within the state of Colorado. And it's about doing the right thing. And there's never a wrong time to lift families up from poverty. This is the right bill at the right time, and I'm urging an aye vote on House Bill 1084.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1084. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no? No. The ayes have it. That bill is adopted. Let's see now. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Are we sure, y'all? Those opposed say no. No. I don't know, y'all. We're a little rusty. We might need to stay here and practice. But I'm going to go ahead and approve that motion. The committee will rise and report.
Senate will come to order. Senator Gonzalez. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a lovely debate, and Mr. Hubler, will you please read, I'm sorry? Will you please read the report? Will you please move the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report it has under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 24-1084 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
Will the clerk please add Senators Jaquez Lewis and Senator Cutter to the roll? The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? Senators, Mr. Minority Leader Rich. Baisley. Will. We called Mr. Minority Leader. Okay, so the motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? Mr. Minority Leader. Senators Rich, Gardner, Baisley, Will, Van Winkle, Smallwood, Kirkmeyer, Liston, Pelton B, Pelton R, Simpson, with a vote of 22 ayes, 12 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, committee the whole report is adopted. House Bill 24-1084 passed on second reading and order revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Announcements. Senator Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. President, I believe in this case. I would like to welcome here to the illustrious State Senate the Mortgage Lenders Association of Colorado, who joins us over here on this side. Welcome to your State Senate.
Senator Michelson Janae.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, pro tem, or just Speaker at this? President. Oh my God. I'm having a rep kind of day. I'm having a rep kind of day.
What say ye?
Okay. What's my fine? What's my fine?
Your fine will be a warning moving forward.
First one, sorry.
No,
Okay.
we don't. No seconds in the Senate. Please continue.
Okay, we have behavioral health champions in the room. Enhancing the mental well-being of Coloradans is a high priority for the members of the Colorado General Assembly. Mental illness and substance use disorders are treatable, and recovery is possible when services are available, accessible, and affordable. As behavioral health reform unfolds in our state, we recognize that Colorado's safety net behavioral health providers are on the front lines of caring for everyone in our communities, especially those with serious mental illness and co-occurring substance use disorders. Their nonprofit mission is to respond to community needs with crisis response, wraparound care, addiction treatment, school-based care, outpatient therapy, suicide prevention, and numerous other services tailored to the unique needs of the population they serve. I'm pleased to welcome leaders and staff, please stand, who are here today, and share my sincere appreciation to all those individuals who dedicate their lives to serving our most vulnerable neighbors as an indispensable part of our behavioral health care system. We are so grateful for you. Please go say hello. Lots of lovely people.
Senator Pelton B.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to announce that tomorrow morning at 7:30, we're going to have the Statutory Revision Committee meet in SCR 352 at 7:30 a.m. And I am fortunate enough to be the chair this year, so I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of it who sits on it, and thank you for coming. Thank you for listening to me. So.
Senator Zinzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we have a SMART Act hearing following adjournment here with the Business and Labor and Technology Committee. So if you are a member of that, please don't forget to bring your purple striped book with you. And then this afternoon, we will have another SMART Act hearing at 1:30 where we will be meeting with the local government committees. So please bring your staff budget briefing summaries. Thank you.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President, and for the members of the Senate Business, Labor, and Technology Committee, that SMART Act hearing will be 15 minutes on adjournment in the Old State Library. See you there. Thanks.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to request a moment of personal privilege with my colleague here.
Granted.
Thank you. Members, we have some very special guests here today. We have members from the Aurora Mental Health and Recovery Center and location, and I'm just here to, first of all, personally acknowledge and recognize that work that they do in Aurora and around the state. Aurora Mental Health and Recovery is just that. So if someone is dealing with addiction, if someone's dealing with substance abuse, or if someone's dealing with depression, or whatever you might be challenged with, Aurora Mental Health and Recovery has an opportunity for you to seek the service and assistance that you need. And I just want, their office is not too far from where I live. And I'm so glad that they're accessible to people who are challenged this way. And they provide their services for folks. And you don't have to just go there. They have what I want to call foot soldiers that go out in the community where they might not know where the services are, but they meet them where they are, and they give them access to an opportunity for recovery. So I'm just so honored that they're here to watch our work today, and my colleague is going to introduce some of the guests that we have here today.
Senator Buckner.
Mr. President, I'm asking for a moment of personal privilege as well.
Granted.
One of the other things I want to mention about Aurora Mental Health and Recovery is they have already served over 17,000 individuals per year. And since I represent Southeast Aurora, I know how important these services are. And I'd like to introduce some of the people in attendance today. And would you please stand when I say your name? Dr. Kelly Phillips Henry, who is the CEO. Kathy Snell, CSO. Former State Representative Extraordinaire, the Honorable Debbie Stafford, who is the Legislative Director. Dr. Ann Garrett Mills, who is the Chief Medical Officer. Harrison Cochran, Board Member. Adrian Parrott, Client Advisory Council. Thank you all for being here with us today. We are so proud that you represent Aurora and what you're doing for our community.
Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. This afternoon in the old Supreme Court, we'll have our joint Senate Local Government and Housing, Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee hearing, and as was mentioned before, we'll have a presentation from our Joint Budget Committee, SMART Act presentation from the Department of Local Affairs, presentation from the implementation of Proposition 123, presentation from the Colorado Coalition of Homeless, and also public testimony. Old Supreme Court, 1:30. See you there. Thank you.
Senator Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. President. After conferring with the minority leader and the majority leader, I request to be excused next Thursday, February the 1st.
Great. Approved. Granted. Further announcements. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate adjourn until Wednesday, the 24th, 2024 at 9 a.m. '24th. It's 23rd right here. 9 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, or the aye has it, and the Senate will recess and adjourn until Wednesday the 24th at 9 a.m.